Week 13 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few players I look to stash this week. So these are some players that have already played well, or I think are about to break out. First player, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine of the Tennessee Titans. So it's very surprising to me. He's still out there in 85% of fantasy leagues is Westbrook-Ikhine, and he's been a touchdown scorer over the last 6 weeks of the season, where he's had 6 touchdowns in the last 7 games. So the last few weeks were Westbrook-Ikhine. Week 10 at the Chargers, 3 catches, 31 yards. Week 11 versus Minnesota in that ball game, 2 catches, 117 yards and a touchdown on a 98-yard touchdown. In Week 12 at the Texans, 2 catches, 48 yards and a touchdown on 5 targets. I know the targets aren't great for Westbrook-Ikhine, and I know he's been that ultimate boom or bust wide receiver where if it's not a deep ball touchdown, he's not putting up fantasy points, but the numbers don't lie. He's finding the end zone weekly. Him and Will Levis have a connection on that deep ball, and ever since DeAndre Hopkins got traded away from this Kansas City Chief team, he's putting up numbers and he's playing well. So Westbrook-Ikhine, like I said, very surprising, still out there in 85% of fantasy leagues, and definitely a receiver to stash, because if he goes out there once again, even let's say if it's 3 catches, 90 yards and a touchdown weekly, he's getting the numbers, and him and Levis are connecting on that one deep ball. That's all they need to put up points. Next player, Devon Vele of the Denver Broncos. I've mentioned him over the last month of the season almost, is Vele out there in 82% of fantasy leagues in 3 weeks in a row with double-digit fantasy points in PPR leagues. Week 10 at the Chiefs, 4 catches, 39 yards, found the end zone. Week 11 versus the Falcons, 4 catches, 66 yards on 5 targets. In Week 12 at the Raiders, 6 catches, 80 yards, 9 targets. I said this in other videos. He's usually the number 2 target, in my opinion, in this offense behind Courtland Sutton, is Devon Vele. And he's a guy that could run the routes, and his route participation has gone up, and he's a big target, especially in the red zone at 6'7", 6'8". So this week with a good matchup versus the Cleveland Browns, it wouldn't be surprising to me if he goes out there and it's his 4th game in a row with double-digit fantasy points, and definitely someone to stash this week. The next stash, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, New Orleans Saints. Valdes-Scantling, he's been putting up numbers since he signed with the Saints. 2 games in a row with at least 15 or more fantasy points in PPR leagues. Week 10 versus Atlanta, 3 catches, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Week 11 versus the Browns, 2 catches, 87 yards and a touchdown on a 71-yard touchdown. So Derek Carr, we know he's a gunslinger. We know he likes getting that football down the field and always having a deep ball threat. And MVS has been the deep ball threat now for this New Orleans Saints team. Chris Olave, no timetable for his return. Rashid Shaheed was hurt early in the season. He's obviously out for the season. And this week, it wouldn't be surprising if MVS catches a deep ball and possible another touchdown in this game versus the Rams. So right now, I'd rather just go out there, and if I got a bench spot available on my team, and stash MVS, because he's pretty much operating as the number 1 wide receiver for the Saints team right now, and he's available in 72% of fantasy leagues. Next player, Braylon Allen of the New York Jets. So Braylon Allen, he might get a start this week. So far, it hasn't looked encouraging with Breece Hall, where he's banged up a little bit with knee soreness. And Braylon Allen, regardless, I think should be a decent stash for fantasy owners, and he's also out there in 72% of fantasy leagues. So early in the season, he was getting more looks with Braylon Allen, but the last 3 weeks, this Jet offense really hasn't done much besides that Indianapolis game, and Allen has barely touched the football. So big physical back, 20 years old, 6'1", 235 pounds, and this is a big kid who can run defenders over, and especially at the end of games, he'll really tire our defense out with his physicality and size. So I think Braylon Allen, if he does get a start this week, he could have a nice ball game versus the Seattle Seahawks, where they're middle of the pack defense. So right now, before it's too late, and if Breece Hall gets ruled out, at least you could pick up Braylon Allen, and you got a running back who could be in your starting lineup. And if not, you still got one of the better handcuff running backs in the league, I believe, if you get him on your team this week. The next player, Kamini Vidal of the Los Angeles Chargers. J.K. Dobbins, we don't know how long he's going to miss, but he's out already with the MCL sprain. Gus Edwards, the next running back up. I know they got Hoskins as well in the backfield is Los Angeles. But Kamini Vidal, he hopes he could get some work in this backfield is Kamini Vidal. But J.K. Dobbins, he's been healthy all season up until now, playing great football. And Gus Edwards, obviously, they signed as well in the offseason. But now if he could operate as the backup, and obviously Gus Edwards can't catch the football really out of the backfield, then he's not a 3rd down back. So if Vidal could take that spot in the offense, I think he could have some fantasy value. And early in the season, in Week 6 in a ball game at Denver, where he got some look, 4 carries, 11 yards, 2 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown. So Vidal, like I said, he's got good hands out of the backfield. He's a decent prospect coming out this season here, and I think he could be a player that possibly could go out there and surprise. So right now, Vidal available 95% of fantasy week. Go out there and add him as someone who possibly might get work in this ball game this week. Is Vidal at the Atlanta Falcons. He's someone to stash this week. The next stash, Ray Davis of the Buffalo Bills. Ray Davis, I've mentioned him a lot this season on the stash list. And if James Cook, God forbid, went down with injury, I think Ray Davis could go out there and help fantasy owners. Is Ray Davis. We saw it early in the season when he started the ball game at the New York Jets. He could catch the football out of the backfield. He's physical in between the tackles. And James Cook, I know he's been healthy all season and playing good football, but if you want to stash a running back who could change the game for some fantasy owners, if James Cook went down with injury, where if you got an open roster spot, or if there's someone on your team that's just not producing with no upside like Ray Davis, this would be the time to go get him because, like I said, in expanded work, Week 6 of the Jets, 20 carries, 97 yards, 3 catches, 55 yards. Week 7 versus Tennessee, 5 carries, 41 yards, a touchdown. And then going to Week 9, he had a big game as well. 4 carries, 20 yards, 2 catches, 70 yards, a touchdown. So I know the last few weeks, the numbers haven't really been there. But as a handcuff running back and someone to stash, just in case James Cook goes down with injury or whatever the case may be, I think Ray Davis, at this point in the season, you're looking for a lottery ticket if someone goes down and someone who could help your fantasy team and possibly catapult you to a championship. So Ray Davis, definitely one of those players I would keep an eye on. And stash is one of the best handcuff backs in the league. And the final player I look to stash is Zach Ertz of the Washington Commanders. Very surprising. He's still available in over 50% of fantasy leagues as Zach Ertz. And weekly, he's going out there and he's making plays as Zach Ertz, especially the last 2 weeks, 15-plus fantasy points in PPR leagues. So Week 11 at the Eagles, 6 catches, 47 yards, a touchdown, and 2-point conversion. And Week 12 versus the Cowboys, 6 catches, 38 yards, and a touchdown, 8 targets. He's the number 2 target, obviously, on this offense is Zach Ertz. Right now, like I said, if you need a tight end, very surprising out there in over 50% of fantasy leagues. And anytime the tight ends, that number 2 or 3 option, even number 1 option in their offense, they're going to put up points and they're going to have a lot of value. So like I said, Zach Ertz the last few weeks, he's gone out there, he's finding the end zone. Him and Jaden Daniels have a good rapport. And Daniels looked more healthier last week as well, moving more in the pocket, and he ran for 74 yards. So I think Ertz, next couple weeks isn't fluky for him, and this week another decent matchup versus the Tennessee Titans, where I think he could go out there, have another good game. So if you have trouble with the tight end position, or you've been streaming tight ends all season long, I think Zach Ertz is a good option for fantasy owners and someone to stash this week, because if he has another good game, in my opinion, he's a top 8, top 10 tight end weekly then. So that's a few players I look to stash for Week 13 of the fantasy football season.